I live in a normal suburban town and it was the 4th of July weekend. My parents were away, so I decided to throw a mini party in our backyard. I invited about 20 people over. With a pool in our backyard, I told everyone to bring their bathing suits, and I had some leftover fireworks from last year that I planned to shoot off towards the end of the night. I tried to keep the gathering strictly in the backyard because I didn't fully trust people not to make a mess inside the house. Everything went fine. Anywhere from 20 to 30 people showed up. Some people jumped in the pool, others played drinking games, and later in the night, we shot off some fireworks in the street. The party started to die down after midnight, and by 1:30 a.m. everyone was gone. There were a million red plastic cups in the yard and tons of empty cans and bottles, but that was a mess to worry about tomorrow. I was beat. I went inside, changed out of my clothes, brushed my teeth, and crawled into bed. I was pretty buzzed, so I didn't think I'd have any trouble falling asleep. Suddenly I heard firecrackers going off outside. It sounded like they were right outside my window in our backyard. I got up and looked out the window, and to my confusion and downright horror, I saw a line of firecrackers going off next to our pool. My initial reaction was to yell out the window who did that. I figured it had to be one of my friends who stayed behind, pranking me. I ran downstairs to the back door. I slid open the glass door but kept the bug screen door closed. I looked around the backyard and said again, "Who's out there?" By now the firecrackers had finished going off. Someone was back there and they had just set them off. That doesn't happen by accident. I texted as many people as I could think to, and then the group chat, asking who was still at my house. Only a few people answered, most likely because a lot of them were asleep already. Everyone who answered said they were in bed or at home. I stepped outside into the backyard and looked around for a minute. When I saw no one, I went back in, shut the door, locked it, and went back upstairs to my room. I was barely in bed for 5 minutes before hearing something from the upstairs living room down the hall. Then I heard the sound of a beer pong ball falling off the table and bouncing on the wood floor. My heart started to race. Was someone in the house? Did one of my friends pass out on one of the downstairs couches or maybe in one of the other bedrooms? While this seemed like a possibility, I wasn't about to go out there. I got out of bed and went to the door to put my ear up to it and listen. I didn't hear anything for a moment. I waited, and then clear as day, I heard footsteps approaching my door, then the doorknob jiggling. The door was locked. There was a loud bang on the door. I screamed through the door to get out of here or I'd shoot. A deep male voice on the other side said, "Jay, you in there?" And I heard another deep voice in the room with me say, "Yeah." I turned to the corner by my drawers and realized there was someone there. I screamed my soul out as this man came over to me holding what looked like a gun in his hand. He then put his hand over my mouth and told me to shut up or he'd kill me. He unlocked the door and opened it, and there was another masked man. They whispered to each other as they had me at gunpoint, now sitting on the bed. One of them then said to me, "Stay right there and don't move." The other guy left the room and went straight to my parents' room. He came back and asked for the combination to my parents' safe, which I said I had no idea about, which was the truth. There were a total of 3 intruders in the house. One kept me at gunpoint while the other 2 pilfered the house, stealing my mom's jewelry that was left out along with any other valuables they found. After the longest 10 minutes of my life, one of the men yelled, "Let's go." I heard them all hurry out the back door. I tried to see what kind of car they left in through a window, but it appeared they didn't park near my house. I called 911 right away. As soon as police arrived, they asked if we had any cameras around the house, which we didn't. They then asked if I got any of the names or saw any of their faces, and all I could give them was that one of them was referred to as Jay by the others. They asked if I saw the getaway vehicle, and I said no. The police asked a bunch of neighboring houses if they had cameras that may have picked up on the robbers, and after my neighbors all reviewed their doorbell cameras, none of them picked anything up. I think my house was targeted by a group who saw I was having a party, and they set the firecrackers off to leave me outside of the house so they could sneak in. That's the most likely explanation to me. My parents were livid with me for having the party as they believed that led to the robbery, but they were also relieved I'm okay and sympathetic that I had to experience this. because of this experience, I'm a strong advocate for having security cameras around your house. After the last spark of our fireworks show faded into the night, Zach had a wild idea. "Let's explore that unfinished house in the new neighborhood," he suggested, his eyes glinting with excitement. The 5 of us set out, but 2 bailed almost immediately, leaving just me, Zach, and Adam. The house was far from complete, mainly floorboards and 2x4s. You could see outside through most parts, and the basement had cement floors and walls. It was a 3-story structure with steps finished enough to navigate easily. Zach insisted we keep our phone flashlights off as much as possible to avoid alerting the nearby residents who might call the cops. We relied mostly on moonlight as we explored, sticking together. Once we got upstairs, we heard a noise from the main floor or basement, prompting us to run downstairs only to hear another noise upstairs. This back and forth continued for a while, and we chalked it up to the wind or animals. In the basement, I saw someone slowly walking up the stairs next to me, their phone's light faintly illuminating them. I whispered to Zach and Adam, but they were right in front of me. Shortly after, a bunch of pipes leaned against the wall fell down the stairs. It looked deliberate, not accidental. That's when I knew we weren't alone. We bolted out of the house and stood on the road, a safe distance away, discussing what had happened. Zach was convinced it was our 2 friends who had left earlier, but I knew it couldn't be them. One was a girl who didn't want to get her shoes dirty, and the other was her boyfriend who wouldn't leave her side. Realizing he had lost his keys, Zach had to go back inside to find them. While Adam and I waited, I thought I saw a dark figure moving around the house, but I couldn't be sure without using a flashlight. After a few minutes, Zach returned with his keys, saying he saw someone again. Still convinced it was a prank, he led us around the house. As we reached the back, Zach suddenly shouted "run," and we took off. Later, he told us he saw a tall, dark figure reaching towards him. I ran to the road thinking Zach and Adam were behind me, but only Zach was. He looked behind a dumpster, saying, "We don't want any trouble," then told me to run to his truck. Adam had already driven off separately. As we sped away, Zach explained that he saw a dark figure approaching him and then heading towards me. Adam later mentioned seeing 3 figures chasing him in his rearview mirror. They might have been neighbors messing with us, but their behavior and size made it hard to believe they were just teenagers. I still wonder who those people were and what they were capable of. Zach had another encounter at that house where people chased him, and I can't help but think it might have been the same group. On a night like the 4th of July, there's a higher chance of encountering weirdos, but this felt more sinister. It was the 4th of July, 2015. The park by my house was having their annual fireworks show, but it always gets way too crowded and chaotic. Plus, the parking is non-existent. Little did most people know, there's a small area next to the park that had a perfect view of the fireworks show. This spot was accessible through one of the dead-end residential streets that ran alongside the park. Since the 4th fell on a Saturday that year, it would probably be even more crowded, but it would also make a perfect date. I had been talking to this girl, Ashley, whom I met in one of my classes the previous semester. We'd already been on a few dates over the past few months. I asked her if she'd want to go to the fireworks show with me, and she said she already really wanted to go, so absolutely. Ashley came to my house first, and then we walked from my house to the park. Since it was so close, we brought alcohol, and I told her we'd have our own little private spot to watch the show that no one else really knew about. She was super down for it, along with some tequila and soda. I brought a big blanket for us to lay on in my backpack. There was already a lot of commotion by the park entrance. We walked right past it as the cars were piling up in the parking lot and continued down the dead-end street to our spot. The area was rectangular and fenced off, but it was very easy to get inside since the gate wasn't even locked. Inside, there were a bunch of trees, and at the bottom, a small grass clearing where we planned to lay out the blanket. I led us to the gate, which yet again wasn't locked, and I quietly opened and closed it. I told her to be careful as we walked downhill into the area. It was around 8 o'clock, which was when the fireworks were supposed to start. I laid out the blanket on the smoothest part of the ground. I didn't take into account how dark it would be in there before the fireworks started, so we both turned on our phone flashlights and laid them down as temporary lights. We started making tequila sodas right away. From down in our spot, we couldn't really hear any other people from up in the park, just the occasional car horns honking. It was right around the time we started the first drink that both of us heard something from behind us. It was like the sound of brush being stepped on. We turned around to see darkness. I pointed my flashlight over there, but it didn't really reach that far. The iPhones back then weren't known for their flashlight quality. Ashley asked me how likely it was that other people would come down here. I replied that other than a couple of my friends, knowing about it, I doubted anyone else would come down. I explained to her that it could have been a small animal. The first fireworks were shot into the air, which startled us. The fireworks would light up the entire area briefly, especially the bigger ones and when multiple were shot at once. At this point, we drank and watched the fireworks for a solid few minutes before I again heard something behind us. I don't think Ashley heard it, but she looked back when I looked and asked what I was looking at. I said nothing, not wanting to scare her. This was my idea, after all. But now I was getting paranoid. I decided to turn around and stare into the trees and brush. When the fireworks lit up the area again, I saw a black figure standing in the trees and brush above us. They appeared to be hiding. I whispered to Ashley, "There's someone up there." She turned and looked, but now it went dark again because there was a short few second gap in fireworks. When the area lit up again, the figure I saw wasn't there anymore. I surely freaked her out though, because she said she wanted to leave. Since we were both definitely creeped out now, we agreed to leave while the fireworks were still going, lighting the area up. I packed up the blanket and alcohol, and of course the fireworks show ended right then. It was now dark and quiet again, so we turned our flashlights back on and walked up the hill. As we neared the top, I couldn't help but shine my flashlight into the trees and the general vicinity where I saw that figure before. My heart skipped a beat when I saw a black figure again, maybe 10 feet away. It appeared to be a person in a black hoodie or a robe with the hood up, even though it was like an 82-degree night. They were standing behind a big tree. Then, as if in response to the light, they started to run through the brush at us. I pushed Ashley along and yelled for us to go. We got the hell out of there and basically ran down the street until we were around other people. We weren't followed. I'm not sure what that person was doing in there, but it seemed they were stalking us the entire fireworks show, and them running towards us meant they wanted to hurt us. I only saw one person, so I believe they were alone, but I could be wrong. I stayed clear from going to that spot, at least for a good while.